Hello, everybody out there in the land of YouTube. I'm Annette Dion. I'm the host of Spirit Talk Podcast, and we're here once again with the infamous, amazing astrologer Kathy Biehl. And as promised, we're going to go over all the logistics of this eclipse that's coming up on Friday. And it's a full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio, and we are right in the in-between time, towards the end of the in-between time, between a solar eclipse with the new moon in Aries on, I think that was the 21st, was that right?
19th.
The 19th, and then so we're right in between, and these are high intensity energy times. So welcome, Kathy. Thanks for coming
Nice to be
back.
here.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we have a few people in the chat. Let's start with what's happening today, this week. Where shall we begin? There's so much to talk about on the national front, on the international front. Can you tell us a little bit about this full moon lunar eclipse that's coming up on Friday?
Yeah. My suggestion in my forecast for it was that people do clearing rituals that actually involve flushing things down the toilet. And I'm not joking. Because literally,
Literally?
yeah, you could just stand there and put your energy into it. This is okay. Full moons are times of emotional culmination. Lunar eclipses are like full moons times 1,000. They bring lots of revelations and huge chapter closings. Scorpio is, and then add to the intensity. Scorpio is the most intense of the signs. I have watched organizations basically just implode if they had the stupidity to have a board meeting on an eclipse. I watched it in my own neighborhood this week. So a lot of stuff is coming out that's been below the surface, coming closer and closer to the surface, that has to do with not at all rational things, with power, with secrets, with huge amounts of money, scandal, corruption, things that scare you, the psycho beasties floating around inside of you. So there's a tremendous release potential for it. And this one is building to a head. We're coming up on the end of a couple year cycle of eclipses involving Taurus and Scorpio, which deal with resources and whether you own something or whether you possess it. Like, does it control you? Do you own it? And issues of whose money is it? And a couple of other things have happened this week to accentuate this. Scorpio in modern astrology is ruled by the planet Pluto. Pluto has, since the end of March, been hanging out at the very first degree of the sign that it's going to be in until 2044. When Pluto changes signs, there's always some kind of realignment of power, and it's moved into the sign of the collective and also technology. Now,
right. Can I just
two
ask you
things.
about Pluto? Just Pluto
Sure,
is
please.
so so every zodiac sign has a ruling planet, and for Scorpio, it's Pluto, correct?
In modern astrology, in traditional astrology, in older astrology, before Pluto was discovered, Mars was the ruler.
That seems quite different.
They're kind of there's a kind of a similarity between them. Mars is much more it's also instinctive and pushes things forward. Pluto has the notion of forces way beyond mortal or conscious control attached to it. So that
And
in that way, it's a lot bigger.
on my astrology calendar yesterday, I noticed, pretty sure I saw that, is Pluto retrograde?
That's one of the two things I was going to bring up.
I did my
That's it.
homework.
You did. That's important for what's happening right now. All right. So Pluto, since March 23rd, has been hanging out at the very beginning of Aquarius, giving us a little glimpse of what things are going to be like. And in June, it goes back into Capricorn and does some cleanup work about institutional reconstructing. So it stationed retrograde on Monday, beginning its slow walk out of that sign. And it did it, well, there are other things that happened to kind of draw attention to it, but look in the news for where something is coming to a head that was been percolating since the end of March. And the first example that occurs to me is the WGA strike, the writers' strike that was voted on yesterday and started today.
Yes,
And
I
they're
just saw that. Yep.
setting up new ground rules for how the money will be done, how distributed, how things will be done. And it has a lot to do with the changes in the industry since the last time there was a strike, which was like 2005 or 7, something like that. But there are big issues about the fact that the studio bosses have been getting enormous salaries and the writers are barely hanging on. And so this is one thing. And you might see in your own life, where is there something that you get to spend 6 months just kind of sitting with? And since this deals with really subterranean things, for a lot of people, it's not going to be really on the surface. So I always try to look at stuff out in the news that illustrates it. But this plays a role with, yeah.
Go. I just want to ask you about, so Pluto is in Aquarius. It's just gone retrograde. It's going back into Capricorn, which is the sign before. I can't help but get into my psychic brain during these shows because that's what I do.
Go right ahead.
My sense is that that may have something to do with that we see a disruption with the Aquarian energy, a disruption of the way that things have been. Because Pluto, I used to call it, I have an astrology friend in Nashville, and we'd call it the cosmic Drano. So the Aquarian energy with Pluto together, like you can't hold on to things in that kind of energy, right? It's just going to get broken up. It's going to, like, Pluto's diving deep into things like Scorpio. Scorpio energy is like that, going, diving deep into investigations and that kind of thing. So it's a breaking up, the Pluto and Aquarius. I'm curious about when it goes into Capricorn. To me, what I sense is like a breaking up of the old conventional, kind of hardened way of doing things, and kind of bringing it back to that, or taking a second look at the hard structures, the way things have been. And the Supreme Court comes to mind when I'm thinking about that. When did you say it goes into Capricorn?
June 11. And it's funny.
Just next month.
Excuse me. Yeah.
See.
Yeah, and then next February it goes back into. I'm so sorry.
If you need me to talk for a while, I'll talk for a while.
Yeah, sinuses. So many ways this could go. Pluto's been in Capricorn. Pluto was in Capricorn from January 2008 until the end of March, and that
the end of March 2009.
This year.
Or the end of March this year. All right. So 2009, Obama was in office.
Yeah, but 2008, January 2008. So we have been seeing during this time increasingly failure to agree on what the ground rules are anymore. And
all right, so
much,
can we just back up to 2008? Did Obama get inaugurated in 2008? Was that the year?
I'm not sure when he entered office.
Anybody in the chat? I think it was right around then.
It was, but that's also when there was a horrific mortgage crash.
Right, exactly. Crash. So it seems like we're heading into that kind of energy again.
Well, without going down a gigantic Pluto and Capricorn rabbit hole here, my point in bringing it up is that since January 2008, we have watched all kinds of norms collapse, and different institutions now being occupied or run by people who can't even agree on what the ground rules are anymore.
Or they don't know what they're doing.
There are many ways to look at this. So, so from June 11 to next February, Pluto goes back into Capricorn, then it goes back into Aquarius and sits there a little bit. At the end of 2024, it goes to the last degree of Capricorn for a while, and then it leaves it, and then we're fully in Aquarius. Now, why this is important for the Supreme Court is that the Senate judiciary hearings started right as Pluto went retrograde, and 3 justices on the court have really massive stuff happening in their charts with
happening in their charts
with Pluto. John Roberts, Clarence Thomas, and Neil Gorsuch for certain. Big, and they have, these things have a fuse to them. They're not going off completely now. They're just digging something up that's going to come up again and again and again. And for each of them, it may not be until the end of 2024 that we see where this is going to go. And that does not mean that they will all be on the court for that length of time. I don't think that's what's going to happen. But there are issues that are not going away at all that have to do with money.
Interesting. Somebody's just put up in the chat, Barbara says Obama got in office January 2009. So yeah, he was elected in 2008.
2008.
It does, I feel a lot of similarities in the energy between then and now. The revelation of hidden information, that's Pluto and Scorpio?
That would be part of it. There are many ways to get at it, though. Also, Mercury retrograde in the sign that deals with money, that's a piece of it right now. Also, a Scorpio lunar eclipse would bring a lot of this stuff up as well.
Oh, that's what I meant. I misspoke. Yeah, the lunar eclipse in Scorpio.
Pluto is a part of this eclipse. Not only does it rule it, it has an energetic or it has an aspect to it, so it's part of it. So,
and is it hitting anybody's chart like Clarence Thomas in such a way that there's no turning back?
I just misspoke. Pluto's part of the new moon coming up. Clarence Thomas. All right, what's going on with Clarence Thomas is he has, and we have a timed chart for him. So this stuff is right.
What's a timed chart?
We have a birth time. We have a birth time.
Oh, okay.
So his moon, which is his relationship with women, it's also his emotional core. You will not be surprised to know that it's in Aquarius. So he has a lot that's in Cancer, which can make for, anyway. But he has the ability to be very, very distant and be absolutely rigid in his judgments that he's correct about it. We've seen this. So he has that at 1 degree Aquarius. So Pluto at 0 Aquarius has been starting to set off what that might mean. His moon rules his house of health. So Pluto sitting there does presage some possible health issues, which people have been saying might be happening.
Like psychic people or astrologers? That would be me. I'd be one of them. Yeah. And the thing about Clarence Thomas, he has this aloofness about him. He does seem to have a lot of Aquarian energy. Just,
it's
nobody's
kind of strange.
I'm cold. I'm cut off. It just really feels like that. But did you say he's a Cancer or he has a lot of Cancer?
No, he's got Cancer, Sun, Mercury, Venus. So Mercury is how you communicate. Venus is what you value in his relationship with women. And very disrespectful to say, but we've seen it. There's an incredible pissiness potential with all of that Cancer. But I feel obliged to mention immediately that Roberts and Kavanaugh are Aquarians.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, so Amy Coney Barrett. Yeah, I don't
Wh-
want to bring her into this just yet.
what is her sign?
She's also an Aquarian.
You're kidding. So this Pluto in
No,
Aquarius could really
but she's
mess
further
up.
along. So, yeah, but
Okay.
see, it's not hitting their suns. It's hitting other things in their chart. So for John Roberts, it is right now on his Chiron, which is core wound. Like,
Right.
where do I, and his is like, where do I fit? There is a bit of an outsider vibe in him, although you won't see it. But anyone who has Chiron and Aquarius has wondered if they were dropped into the wrong family, the wrong planet, the wrong place, something. There's something that's inherently uh, other, outsider-ish
Do
with
you
it.
think all that Aquarian energy in the amongst the justices has something to do with how they just kind of feel like they're not part of us? Because clearly
Yeah.
they don't.
And
And
to
that's
be able to be absolutely intellectually rigid and objective and like doesn't matter to them what it does to anybody.
right, and it's a fixed sign. And Aquarius, the challenge with Aquarius is if you're an Aquarian, to keep a check on that aloofness and that like being too cold. You know, like we all have our challenges. Every sign has its challenge, and I think for Aquarians, it being a fixed sign, it's like you that can be some real frozen energy in a
I
person's
have been
personality.
accused of it. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I think it throws us for a loop. I think we look at it and go, "How could you not care?" You know, and there's a real like, we don't have emotions. It just seems like they really don't. So, I'm curious to know what Brett Kavanaugh's. Did we talk about what his sign is?
He's an Aquarian.
You're
Uh,
kidding.
no,
That's
no.
four.
Yeah, and what really chaps me is that Roberts and I share a birthday, but not year. So our charts are not the
That's
same,
all right.
but
Ron DeSantis's middle name is Dion.
okay. Now I can actually group these three men and the eclipses in a way that kind of wraps it all together. The current eclipse is a bookend eclipse to the one that happened on the midterms. It's happening near the
Right.
same part of the sky, only this time the sun and the moon are in different places. And Uranus, which shakes everything up, it's a great disruptor and awakens, is playing a role, but it's come back to where it was in November because it was retrograde then. So there's been like a whoops, going in a different direction. These two eclipses are setting up like energizing a pair of degrees, an area of Taurus and an area of Scorpio. And this summer in June, there's going to be an activating aspect that
Mm-hmm.
will push a lot of things forward uh, that are related to revelations from these two eclipse times.
About the
And
Supreme Court.
that's for everybody. Well,
For
everybody's
everyone.
going to have
Okay.
the opportunity, but it's hitting these three justices' charts in a way that's pulling in their own planets. And so just know all three of them have stuff coming at them in June. And then in July, towards the end of the month, we get a really interesting review of stuff that came up in the eclipses because Venus is going to retrograde in the same area where this other influence in June does. So, bottom line is, and the Venus retrograde brings up people from the past, women from the
Hmm.
past. I would not
Right.
be
Definitely.
surprised. I would not be surprised if Clarence Thomas suddenly has, you know, current day Anita Hill stuff happening. Um, Money.
Maybe she'll come back. Take another shot.
So bottom line here is there is a when stuff's coming to light now, and it's only going to heat up in June, July, August for these three individuals in particular.
It's going to be a hot summer, people.
inescapably. Now,
Hot summer
what's
on the
happening?
Supreme Court.
Gorsuch also recently had a revelation about selling a house that had been on the market
Yeah.
forever within days of getting sworn in. In his instance, it's just Pluto that's playing a role, not so well, no. Eclipses could have a say with him too, though. Wait, some backwards room stuff could start to stir, and we might not see it. For him, the fuse is more like through December 2024.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some stuff about money,
Right.
big stuff about money that's starting to really get pushed at and pushed at and pushed at. And I won't be surprised if there's more coming out. But
Mm-hmm.
his like again, his fuse, we may not see exactly. It may be much longer. Whereas this summer, I would put money on Roberts and Kavanaugh and Thomas being in the news for their own problems.
Roberts and Kavanaugh and Thomas. What about
Hmm.
Alito? Do we have
You know,
his
here's the
chart?
thing. Yeah, I have his chart. I he's not in this. He is the like nothing in none of the eclipses are not setting anything off in his chart. Uh
Huh.
he has stuff in Aquarius, but it's so far along that honestly, I don't see how he could possibly, well, no, it is possible. It's years, like 15 to 20 years
So
before.
maybe so he might stay. My sense about the other three is I see Tower card. I see
Yeah,
the Tower card.
I don't see anything toppling Alito. I see him just sitting there and continuing to write really belligerent opinions.
Well, in one of my Psychic News Network live streams, I saw somebody come into Clarence Thomas and saying it's best if you resign. I mean, like a Barry Goldwater moment, sir. And so it did seem like he had more of a solid standing. Not that he's any saint by any means, but I felt like he would come to Thomas and say, maybe best you resign. So that kind of fits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are
What do,
many.
have you ever run a chart on the Supreme Court?
Well, I wouldn't quite know what to use for the birth date. So no, I haven't. I just have the individual justices.
I just wonder. Well, there must have been a moment that it was
Right.
decided.
And I could
Like,
research that, but
yeah.
I don't have it.
Well, I don't expect you to have it. But I'm just curious if you ever looked for it.
Nope,
Well,
I
that's
haven't.
fascinating. So, yeah, and that way, if we had it, maybe I don't know. You're the astrologer. You're the expert. I wonder if that would be something that you could see, because we're in a crisis right now, where we have a Supreme Court that has a job to uphold the Constitution, and they're doing the opposite. So a
Well,
complete, like total upheaval just seems like it's already happening. Like you said, this is the beginning of a lot of disruption, right?
uh, well, we've been in process of a lot of disruption, and now it
Yeah,
moves into a different form. But
right,
it's important for people to know the framework. Pluto was in Aquarius when the US Constitution was written.
right.
So that still could play out. And there were a lot of things that were tried before they came up with the Constitution. So
Yeah, so it's possible that we're going into a time like a redo, like a reset, like
yes.
a reinforcement of the Constitution, because so much of it is not being adhered to.
Well, the balance of powers, separation of powers, allocation of powers, definitely.
Checks and balances.
I can see in the Declaration of Independence chart an indication of some of what is going on with the court. And that does have the high probability of lessening and lessening after this year, believe it or not. And that is because of, I don't want to get, I don't want to get too horribly technical, but Neptune, which is idealism, it's transcendence, it's how you fool yourself. We're going to use that if you bring up the person that we have not mentioned yet. It's highly
We're
active.
getting there. We're getting there.
Things
Stay tuned, folks.
Anyway,
it's coming.
We've been having the United States Neptune in the sky has been opposing the U.S. Neptune, which is what happened at the Civil War. The U.S. Neptune is in the House of Legislation and the courts, and it can be a marker for like religiosity and for racism and hypocrisy. So with Neptune in the sky opposing that, the role of the courts, and aside here, the Supreme Court has always been behind the times, except for a brief time in the 60s when it did some like incredibly activist things. It generally is very conservative compared to what the will of the people is, because it's looking at what the law is supposed to have been.
Stodgy and stuck in the mud kind of energy, which I feel that Pluto in Aquarius has a potential to disrupt that too.
I think that there will be a much more progressive approach coming in.
That's good news.
But
did you hear that, people?
The Neptune opposition has been eroding a lot of things, and Neptune's going to move away from this when we get to the end of the year. And I think it'll be less and less, and then more cleanup happening. And yeah.
Does that mean people will seem to be living more in a collective reality, or I mean, where
I was speaking in terms of the court. I think there'll be a big cleanup going on.
Yeah, well,
with what the court's
that's
been
an
doing.
alignment. Yeah, that's an alignment. Yeah, awesome. That's so interesting. We have a few other people we want to talk about, unless you had more to say about any of the justices or.
No, please. I could go on for
somebody here mentioned the Republicans want to scrap the Constitution and start over. That does seem to be the case. I have a friend I mentioned my friend in Nashville who's an astrologer. Some time ago, she said with the Pluto and Aquarian energy, she could foresee something like us not being the United States anymore. Something like, that state has its own rules and it's like that, which isn't a comforting thought. Have you come across anything that looks like a defection, like seceding from the Union, like Marjorie Taylor Greene talks about, and the rest of them? Do you see anything like that? Or my friend might have just been speaking like off the cuff.
Well, a couple of things here. Pluto in Aquarius, the last time around, did coincide with two things that are worth mentioning. One of them was that the colonies and the states, tried a number of different ways of figuring things out. And there were the Articles of Confederation. There were all these different relationships they had, and they settled on the United States and the Constitution. There was always this existing problem of some of the states not having economies that match the others. So that's like a built-in issue. So there is the potential here. I mean, there's already the track record for revisiting and rewriting, but lest people freak, this last time Pluto was in Aquarius also was part of the birth of the whole notion of democracy, which came out of a publication in France, which underwent its own revolution at the same time.
Right.
And 1789 was a really pivotal year. And I will tell you that there are some things going on astrologically with Pluto now that are similar to what happened in 1789, although Pluto is in a different spot in Aquarius than it was then.
Hmm.
So, bottom line here is get involved.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And what you're saying reminds me of, I heard the Tennessee Representative Justin Pearson say, and you may have heard this, he said that this country was founded on rebellion. And I really do think that's the kind of energy that we're in right now. It's time to rebel against what's the unfairness and the racism and the misogyny and the old crusty ways of doing things. So it needs to be like brought to the surface and kind of dredged up and looked at again. And there is a lot of potential for good things to happen from that. But I loved when he said that because I don't think we think of that very much. We've always had to fight for our freedom. You know, we don't have to physically fight, but we've always had to stand up for our freedoms. And it's coming around again. It's challenging us again. Are we really going to just sit by and take it? And they just, you know, the people that want all the power and are all corrupt and all greedy have been able to be that way. Like last night I was talking about the fact that so many Republicans, for example, are running for office uncontested because they've been getting away with it for so long. Because other people just, oh well, you know, we'll get through this. I'm busy. I can't get involved. I really do think we're moving into a time where that's no longer an option. Where it's going to affect everybody. These draconian laws and the taking away voting rights will be affecting each and every one of us. And we see a preponderance of that right now with the situation with the guns and with abortion bans. It's like everybody knows somebody that's being affected or they've been affected themselves. So it's not going to be a time like it was, back in the founding of this nation. Everybody was affected by what was going on. And the Civil War too. It's like, I mean, they didn't have all this mass communication, social media that we have now, obviously, but it still was. It touched everybody, and so that aspect is definitely happening now too. It's everything that's happening in the United States, especially. You can't not notice it. It struck me so much when I was watching the news and I saw, just speaking of guns, just video of like these kids playing Little League, playing a baseball game, and all these shots got fired and they were all like scrambling and screaming like crazy. And I don't know where the shooter was or what was going on with that, but they just went into an absolute panic. And every one of us can think of like a nephew or a child or a grandchild that, a friend's child, playing Little League, and these gunshots ring out. And there was video of a basketball game too. Guns started firing and it was gunshot sounds, and they didn't really know what it was, and people were just scrambling. So that energy of nobody goes untouched by what's going on, even if it's just that they heard it in a news story and could relate to it. I think there's huge potential for us once we all get together as a collective and persistently, consistently work towards a better country. It will happen. I really do believe that.
That's very Aquarian. That's the Aquarian framework right there.
Right.
The notion of
Yeah.
the collective and doing things because it affects a lot of people, living in awareness of groups of people.
Which is democracy, right? In a nutshell, that's democracy. That's us participating. It's not a spectator sport, everyone. Everyone agrees. You say you want a revolution. Good song. Excellent. Let's get into some characters that you've promised to run charts for.
All
And
right.
everyone's waiting with bated breath. I can feel it.
Who do you want to start with?
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Really? Seriously?
Well,
Okay.
somebody
Well,
just mentioned her.
okay. Fine. Um, Saturn is coming for her.
Look out. That's probably all we need to know.
No, let me
There's
tell you
more.
two things. The first is, um, so we have Saturn's a planet of consequences and
Yeah.
order, and I call it the planet of adulting. It's a cosmic party pooper.
Grow
It
up.
rewards, yeah, it rewards you if you've been using your energy in a good way, and it slams you. We've had this conversation. I call it the cosmic two by
Yeah.
four. It comes on you. So Saturn is in her career house.
Really?
Well,
When?
it's there. It's just has been there in her solar chart. I do not have a birth time, so I have a, and you can get accurate information out of this kind of method. All right. So in her solar chart, Saturn has for some time been in her 10th house of career and public reputation, making her responsibility or lack of it extremely noticeable to all. In March, Saturn moved into the sign of Pisces, where it will be for about 3 years. The last time it was there, it was 1994, or last time it entered that. So Saturn is making a really bearing down on aspect to her sun all year long. She's a Gemini at the very beginning of the sign. Saturn is squaring her sun all year,
All year.
all year, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, not letting her out of the vise. And there is an eclipse in October that could radically change what she does with herself on a daily basis.
Oh, it sounds a little bit like ousting energy to me.
Now,
You,
I know that there are psychics saying they see her just finishing her term. Well, good luck with
oh
this.
no, that wouldn't be me. I didn't. I have not seen that. I wonder what's in her chart. If you can tell from the scan information that you have on, you
Mm-hmm.
probably don't know her birth time, right?
No, but I can tell you a lot about her.
Yeah, I'm wondering what makes her so brazen. Is there something in her chart that makes her so like? I mean, she'll say things that were just like take my breath away sometimes. Like, how could anybody say that?
Well, she has Venus in Aries, which is huntress mode, and she had in
Yeah.
her solar chart, it's in the house that is the house of self-undoing and self-sabotage.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it would make her blurt, and also there's incredible insecurity attached with this. Gee, big surprise.
So I
Incredible
wonder, the
insecurity.
Aries energy is really like spontaneous or impulsive, right? And Venus in Aries would do what around
Brusque,
women and issues about women would that?
brusque, very brusque. It would be, I see it, I want it, I'm going for it. I don't care if I jump on somebody. It can be very argumentative, very
Oh yeah,
brusque. Um, this would also, I mean, didn't she run own a CrossFit gym or something? This could make her like really interested in being highly physically active.
right, right. And she's very bullyish, very
Well,
much a bully.
mhm. And that's part of her wound. I think she probably was bullied when she was younger, or
Right.
somebody taught her that the way you get around is that you just dominate everyone.
Yeah,
Her,
you get them first before they get you. That kind of an energy.
yeah, she has Chiron really close to that Venus. So
Oh,
the solar eclipse a couple of weeks ago was close to that to kind of set some things off. But the solar eclipse in October will be very, very close to Uranus in her sixth house of daily routine. She is and it's in Libra. She's a disruptor. It's what she is. In fact, she has
oh yeah.
some characteristics that are really similar to Trump. She's a disruptor. She has a lot of Gemini Sagittarius energy. She has a preponderance of things in Gemini, including her Mercury and her sun or moon.
When's her birthday? It's next
I am
month,
so
right?
apologize. It's May
That's
23rd.
okay. May
It's May
23rd.
23rd.
Kind of close to Taurus, right?
She has a 1 degree Gemini sun, so it just barely crawled out. Um, but just know with her, all I really feel is word. She doesn't have staying power.
Yeah, so
And
what you're saying is she probably won't finish her term from what you see about her astrology chart.
something could be set off. It could already be building. It may not actually play out in October. It may take months to play out, but some huge change. Big change.
Good. I think that's all in her. We had a little list. Let's see what people in the chat are saying. Deb just joined. Have I missed much? We're about 40 minutes into a 1 hour show, but this will be posted immediately afterwards, so you can get all that great information later. You compared Trump's chart to Benito Mussolini's chart because, I'm the psychic. I don't know if anybody else says this, but I absolutely am just very convinced that Trump is the reincarnation of Mussolini. And so Kathy did a little comparison. What my perception was that if somebody decides your soul decides to incarnate at a certain time, I'm not of the thinking that they would have a similar chart because it's a different lifetime, but have similar traits for sure.
Mussolini had a preponderance of planets in Gemini.
Oh, what sign was he? What sun sign?
A Leo.
Well, that kind of matches up a little, right?
So the Leo with Mercury, his communication planet, fused to his sun. And it is close to Trump's Pluto, which is like how he engages in power. And but the big thing that is similar between them is the amount of stuff in Gemini. Because and there's a little bit in Cancer as well.
Does Trump have Leo rising?
Yes, he has Leo rising, and he has Mars.
It seems like they have a lot of Gemini and Leo.
But Mussolini has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 5 placements in Gemini, and none of them actually join any of Trump's, but that doesn't matter. So they're both very, I would say Mussolini was much more fixed in his personality than Trump is, and that they both they just talk. I mean, that's what they did. They talked, they yelled, they screamed.
Yeah, so was that the Leo energy that made them so like boisterous and
yeah, that would be part of it. That would be part of it, the loud part, but also like talking all the time.
Right.
It's incredible. So Trump is a much more fluid individual. Mussolini was much more rooted.
Well, unless you're talking about Trump insisting on admiration and accolades and that king-like way dictator.
Oh, no, I agree with that part. But Trump has said, I mean, there are through lines and a lot of things he's done, but he's also there's been a nimbleness to
I called him a slithering snake last night.
Oh,
in my show. The Psychic News Network, check it out at Psychic and at Dion. Speaking of, since you have Trump's chart in front of you, do tell. What do you
Well,
see?
you had asked about Trump and New York City.
Yeah.
So I looked at the unification chart, and it's really interesting. They have 2 points of connection worth bringing out.
So just to clarify, Kathy's looking at the chart of New York City, correct?
Right, and that is when the 5 boroughs unified into the city in December 1st, 1898 is the
Interesting.
unification
Interesting
time. And
historic fact.
yes,
Yeah.
it's all about flim flam and glamour.
So okay, that makes sense. So a
Yeah, flim
unification
flam.
chart is just
No,
comparing.
I just looked at how Trump and the city interact,
I I hadn't heard it
and
called that.
and Trump, it's it's glamour. He's a celebrity. He was whatever, and he was going to be prominent. There was going to have celebrity status somehow, but uh, there's like mists and what's real and making stuff up and the grifting and it just being illusion.
Yeah. Is
Illusion is
that
a big thing.
is that the Neptunian aspects
Yes,
in his chart that
and
is
the
that
way they,
Neptune and Pisces or
but well, actually, Neptune in the New York City was founded with Neptune in Gemini right on top
oh.
of his sun.
Oh, interesting.
So it was like an ideal stage for him. But this is what I find more interesting. Trump has Pluto in Leo in the 12th house of hidden
Oh,
things
definitely hidden.
and also criminality.
Yep.
And New York City's Mars, men, how things are pushed forward,
Yep.
is on top of it. What I have found about a Mars link to somebody else's planet is when they're getting along, the Mars link can be so the city would have had men helping make things happen behind the scenes. And we know his dad, Roy Cohn, Giuliani, you can just name it.
It's very mob.
But, but if it's not a sweet situation anymore, Mars goes after the planet. And
It's the
where
planet
are
of
all these?
Mars, the planet of war.
So, what is happening? Well, we've got the first criminal prosecution by the city of New York going after him. So, I just think it's
So,
appropriate.
what was there something that preceded that, like, and then he got arrested? Was there something that shifted astrologically, and then he actually did? It's like really the first time he's been held accountable in his entire life.
Well, here's what's happening with that. Neptune, which we've mentioned a couple of times, in the sky, transiting Neptune in the last few years, has been locked into Trump's core, his sun and his moon, he's a full moon baby. I know that's a big surprise.
And eclipse too, from what I've heard.
Yeah. So Neptune's been in the midpoint, and that its being there has coincided with the big lie, with
Right.
June before the election starting to say, if I lose, blah, blah, blah. Well, Neptune's is starting to move out of that, and Saturn is coming up from behind
Are you kidding me?
doing the cleanup work. And in the next couple of years,
Wow, that's like humongous, isn't it?
it's gonna be going over the same territory and doing the same thing. So I see it as an Iron Maiden. Like you
That's
can't.
like two really opposites. You know, Neptune, like smoke and mirrors, fog, illusion,
Mhm.
tricking people, grifting, and then Saturn is like the law, the
Mhm.
hammer coming down. I mean, I know it's not Libra, but Saturn is like if you've been. I know people that when the Saturn hit their chart in a certain way, or if they went into their Saturn return time, and they were criming in any way, they had to pay the price.
That's what we've got happening.
Wow. That's just
Now,
amazing. So, did you look at
fun
his
fact.
presidency? Just
Oh, from his inauguration chart. No, I haven't done that. That could be very interesting.
or even like right now, supposedly he's campaigning for president. I don't see it, even though he threw his hat in the ring. I just wonder if in his chart you can see
Oh, well,
what may be coming.
that's money raising. It's not running for president, it's raising
It's
money
just grifting. Yeah.
because that is his talent. His talent is Neptune in the second house, talents. His talent is creating the illusion. It's in Libra, which is agreements. He has Jupiter there as well. So this is the art of the deal stuff.
Right.
And the eclipse in the solar eclipse in September, October,
Was it
solar eclipse in October is going to be setting, like moving all that into a new sphere. So he's got stuff happening that you cannot run from.
good? So, so as far as him running for president, it's so funny because I was saying that last night. For any of you who don't know, I have the Psychic News Network on YouTube, Psychic Annette Dion, and so last night I was doing a reading on him and everything, and I just kept seeing that because I was asking why the Republicans are still kind of hovering around him, like, oh, we need him to be the nominee, and he's really put them. It's interesting. He really has put them into this like almost a state of hypnosis. It's the way he's presenting, like he's going to do this and going to do that. I just felt like that they were actually falling into the trap of believing him. So not only
I'm
the grift of his, base, but also in a sense, grifting support from the Republicans.
I would venture that there's something else going on.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too.
No, that it's he knows things and that there are other reasons people are doing this.
Right,
So
and what I picked up, I mean, people in the chat last night were saying he has dirt on each one of them, and what I saw was actually it's one blanket thing. It's not like, oh, I know you cheated on your wife, and I know that you cheated on your taxes. It's not that Trump has something individual on each one. What I see is there's a blanket something that he has.
yeah, there's a name that has come up in the news again as Pluto has moved into its retrograde station.
Oh, pray
And there
tell,
are
which one?
new the person who could be the key to the blanket, which would
Does
be
his name
Epstein.
start with a P?
No, Jeffrey Epstein.
Um, all right. Well, I see a lot of Putin energy around Trump, but
Oh, well, I agree with you completely on that.
yeah, I
Completely
did
on that.
mention
But if you're
Epstein.
saying a blanket thing that he might have on all these other people,
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. That's funny.
that could be.
Thank you for that insight. Because I did mention Jeffrey Epstein's name last night. I have to go watch the video again to see what I said, but I that did come up. I definitely saw that.
And these two aren't necessarily unconnected.
Right. Hmm. I'll have to read on that tomorrow. Oh, somebody's mentioning Abbott. Did you run charts for anybody else for this week?
I have
I
Cruz
do
and
want to get to them.
DeSantis. I have not run Abbott's chart.
Let's. We have a few minutes. I wonder if we can fit in Cruz and DeSantis.
Let's see. Cruz. I have the eclipse this week, and the one in November, both determinative of many things about him.
He's in big trouble.
And Uranus is sitting. Okay, so Uranus, the awakener, the troublemaker, whatever, has been for since last fall, sitting on his Saturn, which is how he, comports himself, his sense of responsibility, his commitment, is basically being an adult. And there's a lot of his role in Congress is really coming up. The eclipse this Friday, it has a potential. I'm surprised he hasn't been in the well, no, yes, what happened?
He has been
It
in the
was
news.
revealed
Yeah, last week.
Yes, it was
Yes.
last week. So
it was big.
Revelations coming out about stuff that he was doing in Congress, involving Congress. There are big money things behind this too. And you'll remember I mentioned a time frame in mid-June where there's a lot of activation moving forward on revelations coming out of these eclipses. For him, this comes out of the house of other people's money and secrets. So not going to be a comfy, cozy summer for him. And then the solar eclipse in October.
Look out. Wow.
Whoa. I have not seen him leaving Congress, but this could do it.
I think he's not the only one,
but he could end up with a criminal referral.
Yeah, I think that Jack Smith is on his tail. I think he was very much, they have the receipts, part of January 6th, the whole plan to overthrow the election. And I also think that his wife is getting ready to divorce him.
That would also be consistent with what is going to be set off with the solar eclipse in October.
I'm thinking they've already had the discussion.
Absolutely would be. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I love collaborating because I can compare my psychic impressions with your astrological notes.
Yeah, no, it's tons of fun. DeSantis end point is the lunar eclipse in October that closes out this 2-year cycle.
Endpoint? Did you say endpoint? Mm-hmm. What do you mean by endpoint?
Of this saga of him, because there's something that's going to come to a head and close out really dramatically that involves investments and money and maybe misuse of money and maybe misuse of money. Let me say it again. Tremendously misuse of money.
Seen that. Yeah. The lot of illicit activity around money and a lot of connections to Russia too.
And this week's eclipse triggers a lot of stuff that could be destabilizing in an instant, and there's a huge potential for shocking revelations. If you didn't think it was possible to still be shocked, we might still be shocked.
By what he does or what happens?
By what
he
is
might
revealed.
Be shocked?
By what is revealed.
The psychics won't be shocked, and nor will you. Maybe other people that don't look so deeply into things. Somebody's mentioned, and just going back to Cruz for a sec, remember the insurrectionists went into the house and going through paperwork and said, yeah, this is what Ted Cruz said we need. I was not aware of that. I maybe didn't hear it. Did you hear about that?
It sounds familiar now that
I remember them shuffling through papers and go, this is looking for something, but I didn't know that. Is that true? Shockwave, you're so sweet.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I just didn't know that they mentioned his name. Just getting back to Ron DeSantis real quick. Do you think he's actually going to run for president?
No.
From what you see? I didn't, I've never seen it.
No,
never seen it. That all checks out.
One more fun fact about him, about his chart, is that he also has moon in Aquarius. So this is the I'm digging in and I don't care about other people. This is
a lot of Aquarian.
And I'm really ashamed. I am very ashamed by my people. No, do not do this.
He'll be ashamed?
No, I am ashamed of my people, I'm telling you.
Oh, because you're an Aquarius.
Yes.
Yeah, but since you're an Aquarius, you can you know them. You know how they work. Right?
Yeah.
It's helpful. There's really good sides to every single sign, right? Aquarians
Yes.
are innovators. They're genius. They're really really smart, and they can shake things up, and we all have our stuff, even Sagittarians. So it's 4 o'clock. Let us know how to reach you to get a tarot, not a tarot reading. That's me, an astrology reading.
My site is empowermentunlimited.net. I have forecasts there every week, every new moon, every full moon, every month. My YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian. If you're interested in the current events aspect of things, my Facebook group is the Astro Insight Lounge, and I will share news stories that are actually playing out the energies in the sky, and it tends to be political.
Yep, great.
And
That's what we want.
yeah, and I also have a Patreon / Kathy Biehl where I talk about a lot of stuff, and I have to throw in real quick, since you mentioned that every sign has a different potential. This is my new book.
Oh, you have
I'm
a
in this
book.
book.
Oh, yay!
Actually, I have 2 books out this week, but they're both anthologies. This is called Your Guide to Self-Discovery. It's published by Lou Wellen. Yes, Lou effing Wellen
Really,
worldwide.
you got the good for you.
And it's like 20 different tools for exploring yourself, and they're real interesting ones, not always ones you'd think, like birth order, um, and anyway, family constellations. I wrote the astrology chapter, and it's based on sun signs, but it takes the approach of these are things to watch for, and this is what other people see in you might not be aware of.
Which
So
is the
it's like,
rising, right? Isn't the rising the way people see you?
but how people can experience or perceive what's coming off your sun sign. You could also use it to look at your rising. At any rate, your guide to self-discovery.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hold it up again. Is that so? You have a chapter in that, or that's your
Yep.
book?
No, I have a chapter in this book.
I see. Your guide to self-discovery, but and the author is
Georgina
Georgina
Cannon. She
Cannon.
is a hypnotherapist from Toronto.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Well, I've had an awesome time. This is so fun. Just in terms of what to, I guess you already addressed this at the start. Just to recap, what personally the eclipse, full moon, and Scorpio means for us as individuals, it's time to just clear out the old, right? In a very deep, intense way, because there's no lightness about the sign of Scorpio. You, you got to do
But
deep
no,
dives.
it can actually be a very kind if you use a scalpel instead of a butter knife. It can be
Yeah,
very
true,
kind.
true.
But I wanna just stress that a lot of people have things driving them right now that are not conscious
Right. It's
or
the hidden.
rational. So be really easy on yourself, and maybe like scale back what you want to do out in the world, and give yourself a lot of downtime. If you're into tub time, this is great.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
water sign. Yep.
contemplate and clean things out. Wear a psychic hazmat suit if you go out in public. I'm really not kidding about that at all.
I've never heard of that.
Oh, yes. And
Bubble up. That's what one of my clients said to me. Bubble up
that's good. I like
energetically.
that.
Yeah, yeah, it works.
Um, but also know that a lot of stuff leaves, and you don't run after something that's leaving, even
Yeah,
if it like
that's great.
tearing at your heart, which I have got that going on in my life right now. And it's like,
That's great
really?
advice. If it's time for it to go, let it go. Do it willingly, or it's going to be done like in a maybe a more abrupt way.
Well, you won't make it stay, and then you
Right,
shouldn't.
right. I always say if you don't do it when you're supposed to, whatever it might be, the angels if you don't get
Oh
rid of
yeah.
it, the angels will take care of it. So thank you so much. If you want to reach me or follow me, it's Psychic Annette Dion on YouTube, and Spirit Talk Podcast. The podcast is new, but we're not new to what we do. Kathy's been practicing astrology for decades, and I've been a practicing psychic tarot reader for decades also. So reach out, and psychicannetdion.com is my website. So stay in touch, and I'll be doing my Psychic News Network tomorrow night. I do Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time live. So I hope you can join me and reach out to Kathy, and we'll see you again real soon. All right. Bye, everyone. Namaste.